Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat at malugod na pagbati po mula sa Future Earth Philippines. Welcome po sa ika-117th episode ng The Filipino SDG Action Hour at muli nyo kaming samahan sa isa't kalahating oras ng mga hitik na impormasyon at mga bagong kaalaman. Salamat po sa inyong pagpili na makasama kami ngayong hapon. Bagamat meron po kayong option na mag-swimming at magtampisaw sa mas malalamig na lugar. Pero pinili niyo po kami samahan ngayong hapon. So subukan po natin palamigin ang ating kapaligiran at pag-usapan po natin ang topic na pinamagatang Future Food Proofing. Protocols are two sides of the coin. So tayo po ay muling pinaunlakan ng ating speaker na nagmula pa po sa paanan ni Mariang Makiling. Siya po ay isang agriculture expert, agronomist, retired professor sa College of Agriculture and Science, Food Sciences sa UP Los Baños. At siya po ay may significant na ambag sa agricultural science, lalo na po sa aspeto po ng crop science and organic farming. Ang kanya pong mga research work at interest ay umiikot po sa sustainable agriculture, organic farming and crop management na nakafocus po sa pag-address ng challenges na post ng climate change. So yung kanya pong mga nagawa, mga trabaho, emphasizes the importance of sustainable and organic approaches to enhance agricultural productivity while preserving environmental health. And yung kanya pong research has been recognized with several awards, including the UP Scientific Productivity Award and the Crop Science Award from the Crop Science Society of the Philippines. He has also served as a plenary speaker at international conferences, sharing his expertise on organic agriculture and sustainable farming practices. And as a dedicated educator and researcher, he continues to influence agricultural practices in the Philippines, promoting methods that balance productivity with environmental stewardship. So let's all welcome ang isa po sa mga masugid na tagapagtaguyod at haligi ng agrikultura at food security, Dr. Chidoro Ted Mendoza. Sir Ted, welcome po.
Salamat sa napakaganda mong introduction. Anyway, ito naman po ay siguro nananalaytay sa ating mga dugo yung trabaho natin bilang isang anak ng magsasaka at nabigyan ng pagkakataong mag-aral at para makapag-ambag naman kung ano ang pwedeng gawin para meron tayong kakainin. So, ah ipo-project na ba natin ang slides?
Sige po, sir.
Okay.
Yan po, sir. Malinaw po at maganda po ang ating power slide.
Okay. Ah, so, yun po, gaya ng nasabi natin, bakit ko pinili itong topic na ito na yung pinaka-theme niya at dalawa ang gusto kong madiscuss tungkol sa future ng ating pagkain dito sa food proofing na sinasabi ko or how do we assure na meron pa tayong makakain despite all the challenges, okay? Dalawang side ang gusto ko sanang tingnan, yung future food proofing emphasis, ang pwedeng masabi ay naka-emphasize sa production which is overshadowing the food shortage threat and climate emergency. So in a way, kung sa science, so ito yung sinasabi nating hypothesis. So that is my hypothesis number one. The other side or the other hypothesis, which is the alternative hypothesis, is future food proofing should put emphasis on consumption because this is the major driver of food shortage threat and climate emergency. So yun po ang pinakabuod ng aking i-share sa inyo dito sa ating conversation ngayong hapon. Sana makadagdag sa inyong kaalaman. Ah, Marami na ho kayong alam tungkol dito, pero siguro, sabi nga, nobody knows everything. Hindi natin alam lahat. So, ang layunin ko po ay makapagpadagdag at makapagpalalim at sana ultimately magkaroon tayo ng course of action. Ano ba ang magandang gawin? So, yun yung first, no? Ang sentro po kasi ngayon na kung magbabasa po tayo ng literature, madali naman ninyong i-Google search ito. Ang forecast ho ng UNFAO, dapat daw magkaroon tayo ng 70% increase in food production by 2050. Okay? So, yun na nga ho, dito sa sinasabi nilang ito, ay hindi nila tinitingnan, ito ba ay makakatulong itong figure na ito? Ah, Paano ito makakatulong dito sa threat of food shortage? And sasabihin natin ngayon, ang term na ginagamit nila is climate emergency, hindi na simpleng climate change kasi ito na. Ah, kung nasa labas po tayo ngayon na dito sa Laguna, nasa 41, 42 degrees centigrade ang heat degree natin, or 31, 32, 33 degrees centigrade ang actual temperature. So talaga pong medyo painit ng painit, okay? Lalo na sa ating mga senior. Ah, ang main driver dito sa 70% increase in food, of course, yung population natin, and then at sumabay itong income, kasi pag yumayaman daw ang tao, lumalakas ang kanyang consumption. So yun po ang nagiging ano. So ang population po, considered as the primary driver of increased food production, would reach about 9.7 billion by 2050, about 11.2 billion in 2100. This is under medium scenario. Pag titingnan po kasi ninyo yung calculation or estimates of population, meron silang low, medium, high. So, ang ginagamit po natin palagi, ako ginagamit ko ngayon, siyempre yung medium, yung average. Okay? Kasi yung low uh, scenario is only about 8.6 billion people. And nasa 8.2 billion na po tayo ngayon. So, most likely, mas mataas doon ang magiging populasyon natin. Of course, yung 2050 is only 25 years from now. Uh, ang present figure pa rin, tumataas daw roughly ng about 80 million people per year ang pagtaas ng global population. So, anong implikasyon ng 70% increase? It means po mag-i-increase daw ang cereal production dapat from 2.1 billion to about 3 billion tons or 40% increase. Meat production from 318 million tons, that was the estimate on last 2016, but that was 10 years ago pa pala, no? About 9 years ago. To 455 million tons, or that is a 43% increase. Bakit 40% increase lamang ang kanilang sinasabi? So, nagdig ako ng literature. Uh, Pag isinama daw yung food wastage, that is about 25 to 30%. So, mag-i-increase ito ng 70%. Pero, hindi nila na-include yung food equivalent na kinakain po ng ating mga pets, mga grains as feedstock for biofuel for cars. Hindi po naka-include yun. Kasi no, ang i-estimate ko yon yung 1.3 or 1.5 billion pets na meron tayo, dogs, cats, etc., ay equivalent to 0.86 billion human food equivalent. Yung biofuel, yung 1.46 billion cars natin ngayon, kung ita-translate sa calorific value yung grains, yung ginagamit na soybean, corn, ay aabot ng about 2.03 billion human food. Of course, by 2050, ang estimate nila about there will be about 3 billion cars, but still half of these cars are running on gasoline and diesel oil. So, yung estimate ko for biofuel, kung hindi magbabago, ang timpla ng mga tao at hindi ma-accelerate yung pag-shift to electric vehicles or to water-powered vehicles or other vehicles. Although ang challenge doon naman, napakamahal nila, na 25 years from now, baka hindi kayang bilhin yung, ng mga tao, and so they will still stick to their gasoline or diesel powered cars. So, ang total food demand po, kung isasama up sa lahat, it's about 12.6 billion people equivalent. Not 9.7 billion people only. So, ang estimate ng FAO is about 30% short. Okay? That in another study, ang estimate nila kailangan mag-increase ng 102% ang ating pagkain by 2050. So that is assuming business as usual. So we eat as usual, life as usual scenario. Yun po ang ano. So, ang isa pang hindi nila na-include sa discussion sa kanilang estimate, more than half are middle class by 2015. And middle class people eat more meat, dairy, chocolates, ice cream, more processed food. At because of that, ang kanilang food equivalent is roughly 1.7 times higher than the ordinary people, poor people. So, yun po, so I tried to calculate that ang kailangan, ang impact ng mas maraming medyo yumayaman na tao ay malaki rin. That is about 3.5 billion more food equivalent. So that is examining all these figures that are coming out po, no? So, yung future ng pagkain ho natin over the past 20 years, affluence explained 40% of the global increase of material extraction, while population contributed only 27%. Technology is found to only mitigate global material extraction by 5%. So if we add affluence and population, that's 67%. If we less technology, which is 5%, ang net po is 62% global increase of material extraction. Well, another intriguing data that the rich countries, which are only 16% of world population, use 6 times more resources, or that means 96%, and they generate 10 times climatic impacts that the low-income ones, which are 84% of the world population. So the high-income countries generate half of the 53.82 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, while the low-income countries below 10%. So this, ito po yung nakuha nating data. Okay? So, per capita demand growth is the most important driver of food demand than population growth. The ratio of 40, kanina sinabi ko ngayon, only 27% for population. So according to the study of Pocase and Will Martin, okay, ang sabi nila, it will increase food demand by 102%. Okay? Ngayon, kung yan po in terms of those who can afford food, kasi pag tinitingnan na ho natin ang pagkain, hindi lang yung quantity, pati na rin yung quality. Sabi nila, there are 3.1 billion people or 40% of the global population could not afford healthy diet. which is acute in Africa, where over 90% of population struggles to afford healthy diet, while 78 million more people are here in Asia, in this study of Ricci and Rosado. So, ang tanong natin, can we really increase production by 70%? Of course, we are in this stage, lahat ho siguro natin, tinatanggap natin ang climate change na ngayon, nasabi ko nga kanina, mas ginagamit na nila ngayon. We are in a state of climate emergency as the defining issue of our time and the generation to come. I-review lang natin ho yung figure. Ang sabi nila, by 2030 or 5 years from now, no? Global warming should be limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Uh, by 2050 or 25 years from now, carbon dioxide emission should be net zero. Okay? So, tinignan ko itong mga figure. Ito ang ano natin, between 1980 to year 2020s, yun hong malakas nating pagtaas ng ano, ng emission. Medyo nagte-taper naman ho ng konti, pero nandun pa, nasa tax na rin eh. Ang emission natin nakatala 53.82 billion tons of CO2 equivalent, which is 5.6 times increase over the last 120 years. Okay? Kaya sabi nila, mabibreach na natin daw yung 1.5 degree centigrade threshold by 2027. We are now 2027. This is about 2 years from now, no? Although, sabi nila, well, tumataas na rin sa ibang area ng 1.5 degree centigrade kasi ang pinag-uusapan ho natin ay uh, average lamang. Ano po? Okay? Ito ang pinangangambahan natin under a business as usual scenario where there are no significant efforts that are made. Lalo na si Trump umalis sa Paris Agreement, 4 billion tons equivalent daw ang may dadagdag noon, or kung sana nandun sila, hindi sila umalis, less 4.4 billion tons global CO2 equivalent. Binabanggit ko itong mga figure na ito later on kasi later on, yun na nga, climate change is the major barrier in food production. So by 2050, if business as usual, it's 4.3 degrees centigrade po ang ina-anticipate natin. Pero may kaakibat ho na ano yon, no? Sea levels are projected to increase approximately 6.9 to 10.8 meters over time. Sabihin natin average 10 meters. 10 meters times 3.3, that is 33 feet increase. Yan po ay rooftop ng 2 floor na bahay. So, yeah, yung mga nakapunta na dito sa bahay, si Dr. Ses, no, meron akong pinagawa dito na bahay, na dendo mo ng bahay ko. I call it Millennium House. Yun na nga, may rooftop garden, pero pag ganito ang mangyayari, lulubog din pala. So, yun na nga, ang nagpaano po sa climate change natin si Al Gore, madali naman i-Google ito, The Convenient Truth. Sabi niya, ah, kung ang marami pang tao ang hindi naniniwala na may impact sila sa climate change, siguro nung una totoo ito, sabi niya, but right now, napaka-powerful ho ng mga nangyayari. Kaya siguro in the Philippines, wala nang magdududa, or kung meron man, mga exception na lang ang hindi naniniwala na nangyayari do because of global warming. Na last time, umabot nga kami ng 50 degrees daw dito sa Los Baños, yung heat ano degrees namin. Okay? So, ano po ang epekto? Increasing temperature would affect so much food production in varied ways. Ang estimate nila, 1 degree increase in temperature could reduce global wheat production by an average of 6%, rice by 3%, maize 7.4%, soybean 3.1%. Ang tanong, what about at 1.5 degrees centigrade? Okay? Or 2 degrees centigrade or 4.3 degrees centigrade? By the way, hindi pa naman ho nangyayari itong nagdi-decrease nga ng ganito ang ating production kasi nakakapag-adjust naman. But sabihin natin sa Pilipinas, kung rice ang pinag-uusapan, ang iri ang ano nila for every 1 degree centigrade, 10% degrees, 10% decrease in yield daw ang kanilang magiging decrease in production. So, ang ating production naman sa Pilipinas, I will be discussing a bit more later on kung anong nangyayari. Ano po? So, yung livestock din po ay apektado, magiging more vulnerable sila sa disease at marireduce ang milk production ng dairy. So, siguro yung indirect effect ng pag-decrease ng forage, tsaka yung pag-inom nila ng maraming tubig relative sa kakainin nila. Yung high temperature will increase evapotranspiration rates. So, mas magiging dry yung soil, leading to water scarcity, leading to reduce or total crop loss kung talagang masyadong tuyo na yung lupa. Warmer and more humid conditions favor the proliferation of pests and diseases. Nakakapagtaka ho kasi yung mga peste natin ngayon, may mga gulay akong naitatanim na ang maganda ang initially ang growth stand niya, but ultimately bakit nagkakasakit with the high temperature, no? Increased heat waves also impact human health. Food production decreases due to labor shortage. Medyo ayaw na ho o nababawasan yung oras ng trabaho ng mga worker kaya nagkakaroon ho ng decrease in food production. Global warming significantly affects also fish population and fisheries, especially at temperatures rising beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. Because many species will be shifting their habitats to cooler water. So baka mawawalan din na tayo ng maraming isda ngayon dito sa Pilipinas kasi malapit tayo sa equator, medyo iinit. Warmer waters can reduce fish stocks productivity, leading to fewer fish surviving to adulthood. So, it will lead to lower catches of fish. Baka magmamahal lalo ang isda natin. The ocean absorb carbon, making it more acidic, which harm shellfish. Warmer waters hold less oxygen, stressing marine life. Tropical fisheries may see a decline in catch potential, while Arctic region could experience an increase due to reduced sea ice. So, meron naman pero kaunti lang naman po ang tao doon. Where no significant efforts are made, ito po ang hindi pa rin masyadong binabanggit at dinalalaman ng marami. Ang plastic ho natin ay napakadami na. Plastic produced from 450 million metric ton per year shall increase to roughly 687 million metric ton by 2050. Plastic waste in seawater will increase 4 times at 41.22 metric ton. Anong effect nito sa food natin? As plastic piles up, fishes disappear. And fish contributes approximately 17% of global animal protein intake. For 3.3 billion people, fish provides at least 20% of their average per capita intake of animal protein. The total global capita fish consumption is about 20.5 kilogram per year. Pilipino po ay nagko-contribute siya ng about 40 o 35 kilograms 36 kilograms per capita annually. But it's decreasing to 14.32 kilogram per capita by 2010. So, Filipinos on the average consume about 25 kilograms of meat per person per year, with pork making a significant portion of our meat. Meat contributes 20.6 0.5% of total daily per capita supply of proteins in the Philippines. So kung magdi-decline o mawawala ho yung isda or yung ating mga grains ay maapektuhan dahil lang grains naman ang pinapakain sa mga pork natin, Filipinos are pork lovers, magdi-decrease din ho ang production, so magmamahal ang karne. So ito ay isa sa magiging yung yung discussion last time nung una ako magsalita, why food prices increase. Okay? So in both real and nominal terms. So hindi na ho natin pwedeng ano yun yan kasi nga because of climate change. By the way, itong plastic na ito is linked to more than 356,000 deaths from cardiovascular disease worldwide into 2018. Kaya ho isang threat ngayon, ginagamit ho ang plastic sa maraming pagkain natin, sa mga containers, medical equipment. But itong chemical na ito na phthalate called DEHP, nagsosoften ho siya ng plastic at ito po ang tinitingnan nilang uh, nagiging dahilan ng pagkakasakit ng mga tao. I summarize ho in the severe seawater plastic waste pollution in this diagram. So ang effect niya sa fish supply, decrease in fish supply, yung contribution niya sa greenhouse gas kasi ang plastic ho ay ginagawa using fossil fuel oil, okay? At makakaapekto ng livelihood ng mga maraming Pilipino. Meron pala tayong 1.5 million fisher folks, okay? So more plastic in the sea by 2050, fish will disappear. Paano po ang ating diet? Paano ang livelihood? Pareho yan eh. Meron ka mang perang pambili, kung wala ka naman mabibili, kung meron ka namang pagkain, wala ka naman pambili kasi wala ka ng trabaho. Especially our fisher folk. Okay? So, yung pong proofing natin ng food ay emphasizing production. So global food production need to increase by 70% to meet the projected needs of a world of population of 9.7. Medyo mahirap po yata yan, no? So ano pong mga impacts of increasing food production? So ano, to increase food production, kailangan nun mag-expand yung area that will mean larger deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and disruption of ecosystem services. Area expansion in desert or hilly mountains terrains is difficult. Establishing irrigation while technology is available, but desalinating seawater is energy and infrastructure expensive. Agriculture accounts for 70% of global freshwater withdrawal. Crop and meat production is water intensive. 5,000 liters of water is used to produce 1 kilogram of rice, 22,000 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of feed. So producing more food will exacerbate further water scarcity. So may relasyon mo yung climate change natin and water scarcity. Kung El Nino, walang tubig. Kung La Nina naman, sobrang tubig. Hindi ka naman makakapag-produce ng crops in both situation. So yun po ang magiging ano natin, the lack and excessive water will be threatening food production. Okay? Paano itataas ang food production? And food production is energy input intensive. 43% increase or more in nitrogen fertilizer manufacture through Haber-Bosch process will be needed. Alam po ninyo, ang nitrogen in its manufacture used 1.0 liter diesel oil equivalent to produce 1 kilogram. And that's the reason why they have estimated that global end manufacture emits 1.2 billion CO2 equivalent. So, ang claim nga nila, it's time to switch to off fossil fuel use. I repeat. Increased use of fossil fuel manufactured fertilizer and pesticide lead to further soil degradation, water pollution, causing eutrophication in rivers, lakes, and ocean. This will also decrease fish population and fish catch ultimately. Uh, the environmental pressure from agriculture, such as emissions and habitat destruction, contribute to global warming and extreme weather. Food production contributes to about 31% of global greenhouse gas emission. But from farm to plate or food system across value chain, it is contributing 56% according to Grain International in their study way back in 2008. Well, another consequence, the food system use a lot of plastic. The world is now in plastic crisis. Plastic are negatively affecting people, the environment, it's their life cycle, where they use a lot of oil. So plastic have negative impacts also on biodiversity, climate change, human health, and human rights. GHG emission from plastic was about 36 billion tons in 2020. Without any intervention to reduce it in a business as usual scenario, by 2050, greenhouse gas emission could reach over 56 billion tons or 10 to 13% of the global carbon budget by 2050. The carbon threshold to avoid a rise in global temperature above 1 degree centigrade. Okay? Now, ano ang impact nitong increase in future food production? So, current global footprint of humanity is about 1.7 times faster than planet Earth can regenerate, which is what we call equivalent to using resources of 1.7 Earths. Material use has increased more than 3 times over the last 50 years. Then the main driver of the triple planetary crisis, climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, and waste. But we're claiming the estimate is that global population by 2050 will increase from 8.2 billion to 9.7 billion or 18.3% increase. At 2.3 yearly cumulative increase, it will increase our global footprint by 3 Earths by 2050. I tried to estimate that through Excel. Okay. So it will almost double our cumulative global footprint. What about the Philippines? Can we food proof or secure the country with this 70s with our with so many islands? Uh, by the way, I have to point out that food security proofing in the country is national capital center region centric. Okay, uh, the Philippines, we have approximately 30 million hectares. Okay, we tried to calculate the ideal carrying capacity. My own data is 0.43 uh, hectare per person, but it's 0.41 hectare according to CIA. So ideally, our ideal carrying capacity is 27 million or 30 million people. So it means we have exceeded our ideal carrying capacity 4 times, more or less. Okay, assuming we incur 50% mistake. Okay? That means our population na kayang-kaya natin is about 60 million. Okay? And we are about 120 million, 2 times. So later on sa calculation ng food security po natin, magagamit po natin yan. No? Uh, so, tingnan ho natin ang data natin sa food security measures natin. We have land area 30 million hectare, 30 million hectare agricultural land. But for rice, it's only about 2.68 million hectares. Ito po ang isa pang information dito sa pag-research ko. No? A sea level rise of 1 meter could lead to the loss of approximately 219,000 hectares of rice land, which is 16% of the total country's growing areas, affecting 2,500 barangays or 1.8 million people. Huh. But rising sea level in the Philippines is increasing double the global average to the tune of 5 to 7 millimeter per year. Okay? Uh, so what will happen? If this will happen, okay, it will submerge 832 municipalities and 57 cities as climate, and we should declare them as climate emergency areas. So yun po ang maapektuhan natin with climate change. Okay? So what about our rice requirement? How will be affected? Rice requirement from as low as 14 million tons to as high as 20 million tons with low and high population growth. So rice demand shall increase for 16, 41 to 60% respectively under low to medium high population. So by our consumption is about 12.05 million metric tons. So we need to increase our yield by 30 to 65% per hectare or 5 to 7 tons per hectare. Our current yield is about 4 tons per hectare. So we have to increase it. So while we need to increase, the challenge is how do we increase it with climate change, with increasing production costs, and the data on our physical area available per person. So it says that we have vanishing farmlands. Okay, we have very small farms available for our farmers. So because of that, our uh, food security index, uh, 1990. Okay, we are food secured. We are self-sufficient in rice. Take note, we are only about 60 million by that time. It is double uh, the 30 million ideal carrying capacity that we have computed. Okay? So, said a while ago na gagamitin ko yung data na yun later on. But 2021, we are now 2025. In 2021, we are about 111 million. So, ang food security index natin ay 70%. Okay? Uh, by the way, ang agriculture natin nagdi-decrease din ang share sa DPP. And we are now a major importer of agricultural products. Anong danger nitong food importation natin? Yun po, meron ba tayong may import palagi na pagkain to be food secured? Ngayon, ang pinagkakaabalahan na yung rice daw ay pagbibili ng 20 pesos per kilogram. Pero anong magiging impact nito? This will translate yung presyo ng palay to about 8 to 10 pesos per kilogram palay. Ang direct cost of production is about 15 to 17 kilograms. So, luging-lugi ho ang magsasaka kung ito ang magiging basihan ng presyo ng palay. At ito ang more than the climate change siguro, in the near term, kasi kagaya ng ate ko, nalugi siya ngayon dito sa previous crop niya na meron kasi siyang 1 hectare of rice land. Kaya nga, ang usapan namin, kung ganito pa rin ang presyo next year, cropping, kasi once a year lang siya nagtatanim, ay wag na muna siyang magtanim ng palay at magtanim na lang siguro ng mais or other crops. Okay? To sustain naman po ang 20 pesos per kilogram kasi bibilin din nila sa market yan ay yung 55% for families uh, we need to subsidize them to the tune of 320 billion pesos up to 28 1 point about 1.3 trillion pesos ang kailangan uh, pang subsidy. So, ang tanong, is 20 pesos per kilo rice sustainable? Siyempre, hindi yan kayang i-sustain. Okay? So, ang kailangan daw, mag-increase ng productivity, which is tantamount to reducing cost of production per kilogram. Pero, sino naman ho ang magsasaka ang magbe-venture na mag increase ng yield kung mababa initially ang presyo ng palay? Kasi increasing yield means increasing attention, increasing labor, so and efforts. Uh, And the other end, ano ang risk? Yun na nga, yung meron kang risk sa environment, yung climate change, or we are now moving into climate emergency. Okay? Uh, Last year, for 2024, para maging food secure tayo, we were the largest rice importer in the world, 4.7 million metric ton. Nung i-compute ko ho, yung peso value of job loss, kasi nga ho, per ton of imported ay from the farm, that is for 48 days work equivalent, okay? Uh, sa transport, sa milling and handling, that's 4 days work equivalent. So pinagsama-sama ko yun, ang peso value of job loss in importing rice is roughly 145 billion. Kaya nga ho, sabi ko kanina, kahit meron tayong rice, kung wala naman trabaho yung tao, anong ibibili niya ng rice? Of course, may 20 pesos per kilogram, pero ilan lang naman ho ang makakabili doon. So yun po, it's negative to the economy. Can the Philippines be self-sufficient in rice? With this increasing per capita consumption, decreasing land area under production. By the way, isang naging malaking impact, mas masahol pa sa flooding, itong pagbagsak ng presyo ng palay, itong land use conversion natin ay tumaas ang mga nagbibili, halos lahat yata ng farmers na makausap ko, kung meron daw bibili ng kanilang bukid, ipagbibili na nila. Isang kaibigan ko nga dito, sabi niya, nung gawin sana naming trial farm yung bukid niya, sabi niya, Ted, hindi na pwede kasi na-commit ko na, pinagbili ko na itong aking bukid. Alam mo naman ang presyo ng palay ngayon halos nalulugit na tayo, sabi niya. He wants to enjoy his life, no? Hindi niya alam kung kailan magiging balanse ang presyo at cost of production. Kaya pinagbili na rin niya. Kaya ho dito sa Bali, 50% ng aming rice field ay nawala na. Nawala na sa mga subdivision, naglipa na ang mga subdivision nito. But of course, nag-improve ang economy from class 3 municipalities, naging first class municipality na ho kami ngayon. So may kakayahan ba tayong maging self-sufficient in rice? Nung tiningnan ko ang technology, hybrid rice genotypes, the innovation pathway to make the Philippines rice self-sufficient, isa ho siyang paper na pinresent ko sa international conference. Okay? So, pwede naman ho. Pero yun na nga, ang sabi ko nga, paano mag-strive, mag-increase ng production ng magsasaka kung walang incentive sa kanila na kikita sila ng maganda. So, the other side of the coin of future food grouping emphasize production, neglecting consumption as driver of food shortage and climate emergency. So, yung food future daw, it is work in progress. Yung plant-based foods daw ay source natin, algae, insects, forage fish, bivalves, mollusks, or artificial foods, artificial meat, artificial milk and eggs, or novel foods. So anyway, meron na ako paminsan-minsan sa market niyan, pero hindi naman sila consistent or continuous na ano. So, ang food proofing, food securing option na tinitingnan namin which may be sustainable or is shifting to plant-based diet. The best option in this threatening food crisis, no? So, caloric source, marami tayong pwede, protein source, fish, plants, legume, nuts, and regular food items, vitamins and minerals, vegetables, okay? Although with climate change, lahat po nito ay threatened, pero yung mga plants siguro natin mas makakasurvive pa rin, okay? Ah, bakit tayo dapat mag-shift to plant-based diet? Yung 350 million tons of meat consumed yearly, uh, 80 billion animals slaughtered, ay tataas ho yan ng 70% increase in case na hindi patuloy tayong magiging meat-based diet. And meat diet leads to 2 times more carbon emissions than plant-based diets. So, ibig sabihin, itong pagkain natin talaga, yung consumption natin, ang major factor for carbon emission, global warming, or climate change. High meat eaters, ang emission nila ay 7.16 kilogram CO2 per day. The vegetarian, 3.79 kilogram CO2 equivalent. At tingnan po ninyo yung carbon emissions from it, napakataas. Okay? So, yung, yung, yung yung total emission due to meat is about 22.68 billion tons CO2 equivalent. So kung mag-i-increase yan ng 70%, it will increase emission from 22 to 38 billion tons CO2 equivalent. Ang meat ho kasi, in addition to it's an thermodynamically inefficient food conversion. 1 kilogram protein from animals requires 8 kilogram plant protein. And they are also voracious user of resources. Yung meat-based diet po requires 1,400 square meter. Yung vegetarian, roughly 600 square meter lamang. So meat lovers require 2.3 times more land. So if we all become meat lovers, we need 6 more Earths and 8 more Earths by 2050. So, ang reality, itong exploration ni Elon Musk, yung Mars, hindi, ewan ko po, pwede bang mabuhay yung tao na walang tubig, mainit. uh, Now, 50 to 60% of all grains produced per year of the 1.3 billion tons are fed to animals. Grain fed to animals can supply the food caloric requirement of 8.3 to 10 billion people. So reducing by 50% the grains fed to animals can feed the growing population without increasing yield by 70% by 2050, as calculated by UNFAO. This is my calculation. So, global impact of meat-based diet. 70% of the 5 billion agricultural lands or 3.5 billion hectares of pasture lands. Large consumer of grains, 50 to 60% of the 2.3 billion tons or 1.15 to 1.38 billion tons. High meat consumption at 50 million tons of grains per annum. So it's a major cause of deforestation, major user of energy. Of course, if you are to shift to plant-based diet, these are the global positive impacts. Well, first on human health, okay? It reduces risk for many chronic illnesses, okay? And can vacate the 3.5 billion hectare of pasture lands. The global land use reduction, 70% for grazing ruminants. That's about 1.65 billion hectare for agricultural crops. Reduce land areas to grow for feeds. Okay? Less animals reduce considerably the emissions of by lesser use of energy-based inputs. Freeing these areas to grow trees, herbs, and convert it to agroforestry-based agriculture will continuously photosynthesize to sequester back carbon in the air. The avoided emission from meat consumption is about 22.68 billion tons. Beef has the highest contribution at 41%. So greening or transforming our meat-based diet to plant-based diet is still not enough to save the world from food shortage and climate crisis. There's also a need for our farmers to adopt low greenhouse gas emitting farming practices. Farmers should go organic or agroecology-based agriculture. So we are saying that we have to shift from industrial chemical agriculture to organic agriculture. Uh, the low retail cost of industrialized food obscured by the very high environmental price tag. Industrial chemical agriculture account for 57% of causing global warming. If global temperature reaches 2 degrees centigrade, this will decrease food by 10 to 30% when we should be increasing food supply by 70%. The annual economic cost of industrial agriculture has been calculated at $6 trillion. It will be more if the health costs and biodiversity loss will be added. Some claim it will triple. Okay? So, yun po ang economic and environmental reason why we have to shift. So, if you shift to organic agriculture, there are many forms of organic agriculture. There will be less energy bill, reduction in carbon emission. We can sequester back 40% of global carbon emission through the soil. It will decrease cash cost of production. And besides that, safe, nutrition, healthy. Healthcare estimate footprint is equivalent to 4.6% of global net emission of 2 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So wag po tayong dapat magkakasakit kasi mas marami tayong emission. Kasi nga, kung pupunta ka sa doktor, papagamot ka, so on and so forth. Well, this is my work for the last 10 years when I was still active in teaching. I have a number of publications on this job, on accounting carbon emission, by greening consumption, and uh, I have this publication on transforming meat-based, plant-based diet to address food security and climate crisis in the new millennium. It's a review paper published in a refereed international journal. So I'll summarize the results. Okay. Avoided emission from meat is about 22.68 billion tons. Organic agriculture, 14.14 billion tons CO2 equivalent. So if you add the two, it's about 36.82 billion tons CO2 equivalent. So we're saying the greenhouse gas is still increasing. But you know, if we include the global pasture lands will be freed from grazing. Okay, so I use the data by Foley and translate it into total carbon emission reduction. Okay, uh, it will add to about 34.7 billion tons. So if you add the two together, it will lead to 71.52 billion tons uh, per year. Okay, so uh, so if we are to do that, then as I was saying, okay, uh, we can shifting to low carbon emitting food production system and adopting organic agriculture, shifting to a plant-based diet, then we can be net sequestering carbon dioxide. Okay, so that's the calculations I've done. Achieving not only carbon emission but also net sequestering human living is possible through organic farming and adopting plant-based diet. Using grains as animal feed and biofuel are the twin threats to global food proofing here as they reduce the grain available for human consumption. A resource use intensive and high THC food consumption, which is the meat-based diet, is not diet for all as poor people will be priced out. Shifting consumption to plant-based diet is an inclusive diet for all. Slow adoption of organic agriculture can be facilitated If we adopt plant-based diet, the fear of yield decline during the conversion stage to organic agriculture can be offset with the lesser demand for feed grains for animals. In conclusion, I am saying that a meat-free diet is food-proofing the world from global food shortage, threat, hunger, and food property. As I was mentioning a while ago, sabi ko nga, kung itataas natin ng 70% ang food production ay lalong tataas ang greenhouse gas emission, eh baka umabot tayo ng 4 degrees centigrade ang ano, hindi lang 2 degrees centigrade. Uh, So, ang climate change is diet change. Okay? Less and less meat is the way to rapid shift to organic agriculture and the way to avoid the worst cataclysmic impact of climate change. Shifting to plant-based diet is compliant to all 17 sustainable development goals. Tiningnan ko yung 17 sustainable development goals natin, ina-address po niya, ma-address natin if we shift to plant-based diet. Okay? So, salamat po sa inyong pakikinig. Ted Mendoza po. Okay.
Ako, Sir Ted, maraming salamat po sa napaka-insightful po na presentation. Ito po medyo eye-opener sa amin lahat at sa mga nakinig kasi parang una-una pinabungan niyo po sa amin na, oy, teka lang, may danger. Merong global warming, may problema tayo sa agriculture. But at the same time, pinakita niyo po ang pangalawang side o yung other side of the coin. May solusyon pala. So sir, napakaganda na sandwich niyo sir eh. May problema, may solusyon. So it's up to us, sa mga audience, sa mga tao, sa mga nakikinig, na it's an option. It's for us to choose and to do what is right. Now we're going to open the... Sir, salamat po sa inyong sagot. So sir, isa lang po masasabi ko sa bago po natin tapusin natin programa. Narito na po tayo sa mundo o sa punto na kung saan lahat po tayo ay natutunang bumili. Kumbaga sa lahat ng bagay binibili na natin, hindi na po natin natutunan kung paano mag-produce. So ngayon po bilang isang individual, meron po mga factors na hindi natin control. Kumbaga pagtaas ng presyo, kahit meron namang supply, mataas pa rin ang bilihin. Sir, I think malaking bagay na bilang isang individual, matuto po tayo ng basic. Bawat komunidad po, bawat individual dapat po matuto ng basic na pagtatanim. Doon po tayo mag-umpisa. Hindi po masasabi na hindi ko alam yan eh, wala magtuturo. Meron po tayong cellphone. Ito po hawak-hawak ko. Sa cellphone pong to, mag-YouTube po tayo kung paano po magtanim. Kahit po doon sa maliit na container ng tubig, kaya po nating magtanim ng kamatis, talong at okra. So tayo po bilang individual, tayo na po yung lumaban doon sa mataas na presyo ng bilihin. Huwag po tayong magpadaig o magpatalo doon sa mga kapitalista na intentional pong itinataas ang presyo ng mga bilihin. Kaya tulong-tulong po tayo na gawin po yon. At tayo na po mismo ang maging susi para magkaroon po ng food security. So maraming salamat po sa pagsama po sa amin ngayong hapon. Naway meron po tayong tutunan at napulot ngayong araw kahit po mait na panahon. At ito pong Sabado at Linggo, alam ko po madami po sa inyo may balak mag-swimming. So enjoy the rest of the weekend. Bye now.
Salamat po sa inyong lahat sa inyong matyagang pakikinig.
Ayan po, maraming salamat po sa pagsama sa amin ngayong hapon. Teka lang, okay. Ito po, kay Miss Paulina Lingan, kapag kung kayo po ay nasa linya pa, isasend ko po sa inyo ang email po ni Sir Ted. Ayan po. Parang po ba si Ma'am Lina? Ayun po. Miss Paulina Lingan, sinend ko po sa inyo ang email ad po ni Sir Ted. In case meron po kayong questions and gusto niyo pong makabahagi po doon sa kanyang PowerPoint presentation. So again, Academician Ruben, Sir
Ah,
Ike, Ma'am Elsa, Sir Henry, have a nice weekend. Bye.
bye-bye.